We have with us the IGU team with Dan Britton and his staff. And Dan, thanks for joining us this morning, and I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thanks, Jim. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you joining us this morning. Joe, are you going to share your screen again with the presentation, or how you want to work?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, is that up for everybody to see?
I got it. So it's our pleasure to give an update of the interior gas utility this morning. We've been extremely busy with a lot of activities, and for the first time in a long time, I have the pleasure of sharing the fact that we're installing meters on new service lines for both homes and businesses. As you can see in our cover page there, that's a new meter installed actually just a few weeks ago on a home that was built, and so that customer now has access to clean natural gas. And we've got service lines that'll be going in shortly, so it's a great day for an update. Next slide, Jomo.
Hold on 1 second, boss.
Yep. So we usually start our presentations out with a reminder of why the interior gas utility is here. It's related to the interior energy project, and our purpose is to bring as low-cost energy to as many residents and businesses of interior Alaska as possible, as quickly as possible, and help stabilize the economy and help improve our air quality. Next slide. So you've heard much about our large storage tank that was under construction for the last couple years. The tank is in service. We did have it completed in time for the storage tax credit deadline, which was January 1st of 2020. As of June 1st, we had over 1.3 million gallons in the tank, and it's growing daily. This year, we'll bring the tank up to a little over 3 million gallons prior to the winter season. With our current demand, we don't need to take it all the way to the 5.2 million gallons. So we'll bring it to about 3 million, which for this winter will be over 30-day supply of gas in inventory. Next slide.
Oops, sorry, sir, 1 moment. Shout out, Jim.
Happy to report our North Pole storage facility is well underway for construction. A reminder, this is on H&H Road, just across the street from the old Flint Hills refinery, and across the street from where GVA's LM6000 power plant is. The contractor is Cornerstone Contracting. They're completing the, sorry, my system just, am I still on?
Yes, sir. And we can still see you.
Okay, there we go. My computer tried to update. They've completed the excavation work for the foundations. The concrete is substantially complete with the foundation for the tanks and the containment around the tanks, and the foundation for the multi-purpose building. I did a drive-by there yesterday. They were doing some of the trenching for the utilities, and the structures will be starting to go up relatively soon. The tanks that we're moving from our existing storage facility have been drained, and they will undergo a purge to nitrogen, and they'll be trucked to the site and placed on the new foundations. Once this facility is completed, we can gasify the North Pole system for the first time, and customers in North Pole can begin taking service from natural gas as well. Next slide.
Actually, if I may, Mr. Britton, just 1 moment. If we could have everyone not speaking, go ahead and mute their phones so we can minimize audio clutter. And if I may ask a question, Mr. Britton, when was this picture taken?
This picture was taken a little over a week ago. 2 weeks maybe.
And as far as an ETA to completion, so it can be in service?
So our original contract date was September 30th of 2020. We are dealing with a few force majeure issues related to the COVID-19 pandemic. We're working through those with our suppliers and the contractor, primarily materials that are the building, steel, the offload skid, a couple of items like that where manufacturing facilities were shut down for periods of time during the pandemic. We have not agreed on a new final completion date. However, it is looking like it will be likely delayed into December 1st is what it's currently looking like. But both ourselves and the contractor are exploring options to reduce that or eliminate it. But today it's looking like it is likely we're going to see a delay associated with the pandemic.
A lot of that going on these days, just
Yeah.
which is completely understandable.
Yeah, challenging
Just for a
times. The contractor was delayed a couple weeks getting started as they put in their protocols for the COVID-19. So the construction start time happened pretty closely to the target date. It's the number of the materials that are causing some of the challenges.
Once it is up and completed, just for a sense of scale, again, I want to say with 150,000 gallons.
Yes, this facility will have two tanks, each 75,000 gallons. So total storage capacity on site of 150,000 gallons. So this site the large storage tank will provide the security of supply system-wide. We can load trailers from that facility and transload them to North Pole if we had some circumstance where we had a extended road closure and could not move LNG into the North Pole site from the liquefaction facility. So we could do that if necessary. I don't think that'll be necessary. We don't expect to do that. So we'll just deliver directly into this site as needed. The vaporization capacity is sized right now with 3 vaporizers. Again, same philosophy as we had with the large storage tank to have redundancy and ensure the facility remains operational. The capacity of the vaporizers are for the first 3 phases of the IGU North Pole facility, so significant capacity available for delivery out of the system.
So if recollection serves, that's all the way out onto Badger Road.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You bet. And I'm happy to entertain any other questions as they come up, or we can grab them all at the end too. Next slide. So if you had, you may have noticed in the paper an article not too long ago with regards to the expansion of our liquefaction.
Excuse me, if your numbers, oh, sorry, sir, carry on.
Okay. Our next large project was to begin expanding the liquefaction facility in Point McKenzie. That project is about a $50 million capital expansion that requires us to issue bonds to complete that project. We were preparing for a final investment decision on that project, had moved forward with receiving bond authorization by both the ADA and IGU boards. And I had prepared actually a final investment decision recommendation for the IGU board. At that time, it was right around the start of the pandemic and the significant drop in oil pricing. We did a review of all of our assumptions prior to making that decision, and based on the heating oil costs that had come down significantly and were being projected to stay down for some time, and the resulting potential reduction in our demand given reduced conversion, and the fact that the large storage project was going to provide the necessary of security of supply for our system for the next number of years. We decided to pause that final investment decision while we wait and watch how markets react and see the recovery of oil prices. We are moving forward with a smaller bond placement of approximately $10 million so that we can continue to install service lines and meters and bring on new customers in the coming years. The large storage project, in combination with the existing liquefaction capacity, allows us to add about 400,000 MCF of additional sales to our system. We currently annually sell about 800,000 MCF. So we'll be able to go to a little over 1.2 BCF. So we have capacity to be able to add customers in the near term, and we'll continue to watch that and make that decision in a timely fashion so that we can continue our expansion. But for now, we have a pause, and as we watch what markets do. Next slide. So just an update on our marketing and service activities. You'll be seeing some more activity out of IGU as it relates to marketing. We have been working with the mayor on putting together a video tour that talks about natural gas and its benefits. We did work with the UAF Principles of Marketing this year, and they did a project as part of their marketing class and prepared some social media and some additional potential advertisements that we could utilize, which we'll use some of those. We've been working closely with the Fairbanks North Star Borough on the targeted airshed grants, and I can't recall if in front of this group we talked about the Fairbanks North Star Borough oil to natural gas conversion program, in which the borough funded $1 million to help customers with their conversion costs. Under that program, a customer replacing their boiler can get up to $7,500 rebate from the borough or contribution from the borough towards that conversion. If they are just replacing their gas burner, I believe it's 2,000. Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the number ended up at 2,000. It started a little higher, but was amended during the process.
It's up to 2,500.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a number of options for customers to receive assistance on their conversion. Anyone converting a solid fuel device can utilize the targeted airshed grants, which has still a substantial amount of funding available. And that actually will provide a larger amount of dollars towards the conversion. In 2019, we pre-installed about 50 service lines in preparation for the availability of natural gas this summer. The majority of those now have meters and are working through their conversion or startup process. For 2020, as of the date of the report, we had 45 commercial applications and 82 residential. That grows daily. We are getting many phone calls still each day. So we have 127 on our list for construction this summer so far. And I imagine that'll continue to grow throughout the summer. So we'll be busy. We have issued RFP for contractors to complete service line installations, and we'll be completing them utilizing in-house crews as well. So we'll have in-house crews and contractors doing the service line installations this summer. Next slide.
Hey, Dan, I got a quick question. This is Grier Hopkins. The legislature passed House Bill 232 this past session that allows for property tax credits for improvement to air quality, one of those being specifically for assistance hooking up to natural gas with you guys here in Fairbanks. Do you know what the progress is with those tax credits for assistance to hooking up with your guys' service?
I know Michelle's had a couple of conversations with the borough, but I don't think they've kicked off the necessary legislation or the looking at a specific program for that yet. Michelle, do you have any update on that?
As of right now, I don't have an update on that. I know that that is something that Mayor Ward is extremely interested in getting that kicked off.
Ms. Smart has her hands up with the borough. Ms. Smart?
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is Brittany Smart with Mayor Ward's office at the borough. We are working on the program development. We do have a framework concept that's being routed for internal review and discussion. I don't think it's ready for prime time yet, but it is in the works. And I also know that Anchorage and Sitka have been asking what we're doing. They're interested in seeing what we're pulling together as they consider potential programs on their own. So we do have a concept drafted. It's being routed for internal discussion.
Thank you very much, Brittany.
And thank you, Representative. That is I appreciate you bringing that up, and we appreciate the support for that. It is another program that will help with conversions, and anything we do will be helpful. So thank you for your work there.
Yeah, and thank you for your support. I think I got a letter of support for that bill from IGU and from FEDCO. So thank you both for your assistance with that.
Yeah.
And the borough too for the idea.
This is Mike. How many how many applications for those grants do you have so far?
Brittany, do you have a number for that?
I don't. Nick has that information. We have it. I just don't know those numbers. I know we have a lot and we're moving through the funding quickly.
So
Michelle?
if I can interject for a second, actually, I know that they have at least, out of our last 25 applications I've received, at least 21 of those are currently working through the borough.
And is that in the North Pole area then, the North Pole service area?
There are 2 of those that are residents of North Pole so far.
Okay. And how many, I don't know, applications in the North Pole area when that gets going? Do you have people signing up?
We do have people signing up in the North Pole area. That's moving a little bit slower with the storage facility. Not quite complete yet, but there is quite the interest in North Pole, and we are getting applications daily from North Pole.
Okay. And you'll be late. This is moved back, but you'll still be able to do the hookups throughout the winter after December?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll install the service line this summer. The riser will be there at the home, and once the gas is in the system, we can install a meter at any time in the winter. So a customer that wants to can still complete their either conversion or the final hookup throughout the winter.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Britton, we have a question for Mr. George Rowe.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Britton.
Go ahead, George.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Very good. Hey, I was just curious, we're doing some resilience studies for Fort Wainwright's energy systems at the university. And I was just curious, some of the options we're looking at, and of course, some of the options that are in the public environmental impact statement relate to using natural gas at the fort. And there may be options, I suppose, out at Eielson. how is that figuring into your load forecasting in terms of storage capacity, liquefaction capability, et cetera?
So we've been in contact and communicating with the military on that. It's part of our long-term plans, and we have the capability to add liquefaction capacity once the military does make a decision to move to natural gas. The large storage project that we have right now can support the base, depending on ultimately their decisions around their number of days of capacity that they're going to be looking for, whether or not they consider the distributed energy option versus a new power combined heat and power plant. So, it's highly dependent on ultimately the decision that's made.
Right, that makes sense. Would the idea be to have a trunk line going into the base with some on-site storage capability because of that hunker down requirement?
So really that will look to the direction of the military as what they want, whether or not they want on-base storage capacity or whether or not a transmission line directly into the base is sufficient. We did actually recently have a conversation with the base commanders related to a Department of Defense funding opportunity, discussing a distribution line that would connect the North Pole and Fairbanks systems. It didn't work out for this particular funding mechanism, but we'd look to have multiple options of supply into the base.
Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Yep.
Do we have any further questions?
Next slide. So some of the activities around financing that we had recently completed in preparation for both the smaller bond offering that we're moving forward, but also the larger bond placement we were looking to do if we were going to complete the Titan expansion. Was we did receive in March approval from the ADA board, which is a necessary part of our project. In addition, the Interior Gas Utility Board had approved it in February. We did receive a Fitch rating of BBB- investment grade for the Interior Gas Utility Project revenue bonds. So that was also a necessary piece of our project as we move forward. Given we haven't placed the bonds based on that Fitch rating, we are in the process of updating our rating with Fitch, and they'll issue a new rating related to the smaller bond offering in the coming weeks. Next slide.
Actually, sir, if I may, just to confirm, at any rate, that's an investment grade. The current rating is an investment grade utility, which met the standard under your agreements with ADA.
Yeah, it was investment grade bonds or debt for that particular offering. As far as the utility in totality, which also looks at the SETS loans that we have, they call it a, what do they call it? I can't remember the nomenclature that they use, but it also included the our total debt, but did not consider the fact that that there was subordination and deferral on the SETS loan, and so that was a BBB rating. But the bond placement and our debts related to the bond were the BBB- investment grade.
Thank you, sir.
Next slide, please. Some of the next steps we're actively working on right now is obviously completion of the North Pole storage site will remain a heavy focus for us. The installation of service lines and meters for the 2020 construction season. That'll get started in earnest soon. We generally don't start before June 15th, given the fact that there's still areas of frozen ground, and so we find that waiting till June 15th is generally best. So will be starting soon. We are filing an application, which you'll see probably early next week, with the RCA related to the merger of FNG and IGU. We are moving forward with that consolidation. You will see the FNG name will sail off into the sunset, and IGU will be the entity that we operate all of our facilities under. We are actively in discussions related to gas supply contracts. We'll be looking to finalize those in the coming months. And as I said earlier, we'll be continuing to monitor the markets and economy for the liquefaction expansion timing. Next slide, Joe. Lastly, a reminder, remember with this construction season ahead of us, if you're doing any gardening, fence work, building your deck, Jim, please make sure you call before you dig. We're happy to provide a free locate of our facilities and ensure you don't damage those and cause a problem and a significant cost. So remember, please do call 811 before you dig. That concludes the presentation for this morning. Joe, I'd be happy to answer more questions to the extent anybody has them.
All right, we'll open up the floor. If you do have a question, do remember to unmute yourself.
Hey, Dan, this is Phil White. Thanks for the presentation. I'm just hoping that you can give us an update about IGU's progress in exploring options for lower cost feed gas. Is IGU considering diversifying supplies beyond the current high cost source of feed gas?
Yeah, we're looking at all options. I would say that there, as it relates to feed gas in the Cook Inlet, the options are pretty limited. You know, we've got some bankruptcies going on. One of the other up and coming suppliers, Hillcorp is the dominant supplier in the Cook Inlet. So really, you know, the options are quite limited. But we're doing our best to find a feedstock that both meets our security supply needs as well as the project needs.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This is Mike again. I can't find the raise hand button, but anyway, how many customers are you expecting in the North Pole area on that system the next year or two?
So Michelle, I don't have that number right in front of me, but I believe the 2020 residential customer number in our demand forecast was 140. Is that correct?
I believe so, at 140, 142.
So that was our goal. And as Michelle indicated, we are lagging a bit in North Pole with the fact that that storage facility was delayed. I think as we'll be rolling out our new website here in the next couple weeks, we'll be getting mailers out to customers and increasing our presence marketing wise, and we'll hope that that starts to spur additional interest and demand.
And is that coming mostly from new construction or from conversions?
Michelle, do you have a comparative on those?
Sorry, I missed that question.
Is it new?
If you could repeat the question.
The connections that you're anticipating, is that from new construction or conversions?
Are we referring to just North Pole or for all of them?
Well, I was specifically thinking about the North Pole area.
So I know for our North Pole, when I looked it up so I could find it in our actual for the year, it's 133. And I don't have that breakdown of how many of them are new construction versus how many of them are conversions, but the bulk of them would be conversions.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Dan. Mayor Mike Welch in North Pole. Can you hear me okay?
Good morning, Mayor. How are you?
I'm fine. I've been with you all morning, but I'm low tech this morning, and I was with Michelle and your group last night. I just wanted to give a follow-up so that Michelle will know. I talked with my fire chief after our conference last night, and so one thing that the city of North Pole Fire Department is going to need is training to be up to speed. They don't want to take a cavalier approach towards it. They need to be up to speed on how to deal with any fire dangers because they're not used to dealing with natural gas dangers. One of the things that they are aware of is that Fairbanks supposedly has that kind of training. They're not worried about the storage facility because they think that's pretty much automated and will be able to suppress any fire through your automated system there. But for the most part, they're worried about household fires and about the quality of the installations that will be done. So that's where that rests, according to my fire chief last night after I talked to him.
Yeah, we'll be happy to coordinate. That's one of the things we do regularly here in Fairbanks as well. And historically, we bring in actually Texas A&M fire training, and we do it generally every 2 years. This year's schedule has been disrupted because of the pandemic, but we provide in-class training, and then we actually dig a pit and fill it full of LNG and bring the fire departments in to work on live fire suppression. And so
Okay.
I know our Director of Operations and Engineers did reach out to the North Pole Fire Department and a number of months ago before we started the storage project. So they are in contact, and they'll look to coordinate any assistance and training that's necessary.
And one last thing, when you get an opportunity, can you come to my city council with a slideshow that you're talking about? Can you do that July 6th or July 20th?
Yes, I think I can do one of those dates. I'll take a look at my calendar and I'll get back to you with which one works.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Mr. Britton, we do have another a question for Mr. Joe Burns.
Okay.
You'll be next, Doug.
Hey, Dan, this is Joe from Representative LeBon's office. I was just wondering, we've been seeing in the news that there's been a drop in global LNG prices. With that, have you seen lower feed gas prices as you've been searching past the current Hillcorp contract?
It doesn't directly correlate. I can tell you we are looking outside of simply the Hillcorp contract. We are considering potential alternative supplies. The challenge lies in getting the product here to Alaska, to Fairbanks. All of the transportation mechanisms are pretty costly. But we're looking at all options. We don't have any means of receipt of LNG either by ship right now in Alaska. The Kenai facility that was operational and is now owned by Marathon was shut down a number of years ago. They've been studying and have applied with FERC to be able to recool down those tanks, bring in shiploads, but there's not a definitive project decision on that yet, and the timing is uncertain.
Okay, Doug.
Hey, thanks. Dan, I appreciate the positive outlook that you presented and the fact that IGU is moving ahead and gaining new market. My question, goes off onto some of the financing, I suppose, and maybe the future impact of demand with the banks, the big banks, avoiding Alaska oil industry or threatening to. How might that impact financing and bond ratings for the IGU in the future do you see, or is there any threat at all? And in a more obscure, distant future, with Massachusetts looking at moving away from LNG, I know our legislature isn't there at this moment, but that could change. Is there any contingency that you feel necessary to look at regarding protecting the growth and sustainability of IGU system?
So first on the bonding and the financing activities, I don't think we're directly impacted by the decisions of a number of banks not to invest in oil exploration in Alaska. That's their primary focus is on the oil exploration activities that they've pulled back from in those areas. So I'm not anticipating a direct impact on our rating. There could, with any negative economic impacts in Alaska, we could be indirectly impacted in a slowdown of the oil economy here in Alaska. But as it relates to direct bank participation in our project, we have not heard any concerns related to that. In our financing activities right now, our underwriter is Bank of America, and we also have Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo as part of the underwriting team. So we have a significant group there. So I don't see a direct tie there. As it relates to the long-term viability of natural gas and LNG and some of the things that a couple of the other states are doing, that's a difficult one for me to respond to because it's a political issue that I think it's hard to fathom us moving in that direction as a state. So we don't have a direct, or we do not have a contingency plan related to an activity such as that.
Yeah, I appreciate the your response. It is uncertainties, and I'm glad you're just moving confidently forward. It's interesting that you said Goldman Sachs is one of your is on your finance team. Since isn't Goldman Sachs one of the banks that have pulled out or threatened to pull out of oil? And the two are twin sisters.
Yeah, they're pulling out of oil exploration in Alaska. They're not. They haven't pulled out of. I don't believe they've pulled out of fossil fuel investments in totality.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Britton, this is Mike Kraft. A quick question for you. Can you tell us what the current burner tip rate is for customers in North Pole or people you're serving currently in Fairbanks?
About $20.80 per 1,000 cubic feet.
Thank you.
For a residential customer, which equates to about $2.75 per gallon of oil. Comparable.
Thank you.
We don't have anyone in the queue for
Okay.
questions. So if you'd like to ask one, you can just go ahead and chime in.
A couple of other just brief updates that things will be happening, not major issues, but the IGU meeting location at the end of July will be changing. We don't know where yet. Our lease with the key bank, we've been on a month-to-month and they found a long-term tenant. So we'll be looking at an alternative location to meet. So keep an eye out for that. And there was one other update one other thing I wanted to mention and it slipped my mind again. Maybe it'll come back to me. So I just, as we move into this implementation phase of IGU, and there's been talk of years of getting gas to Fairbanks. We're extremely excited to see it advancing and having new customers on the system. I remind people now that this is our gas utility. The Interior Gas Utility is community owned. It's owned by the Fairbanks North Star Borough. The only way to make it a great gas utility is with the community's support and participation. And we look forward to having that from all of us. The more customers we have, the lower our pricing, the better the air quality, and the more investments we can make in additional infrastructure.
Dan, this is Jim. Just wanted to let you know that as you look for a facility to meet, please keep in mind that you're welcome to meet here at the FEDC boardroom. You kind of understand the capacity, so it's about 10 around the table, and of course we have seating if you need it. But we just want you to know that you're welcome to meet here.
We appreciate that, Jim. Thank you. I think we'll have a number of pretty good options out there in the community, and ones that are low cost or no cost. And I think the Fedco facility is kind of similar to the space we have here at FNG, and it's a little bit tight, but I do appreciate the offer.
Okay. Well, Dan and your IGU team, we appreciate you being with us today, and we appreciate the update. We're excited about the progress, and of course looking forward to the time when we have the majority of Fairbanks being served by natural gas. Thank you all for participating, and again, we are hoping to do this on a weekly basis, and we'll let you know as we proceed here. So if there are any more questions before we sign off, just raise your hand, or just go ahead and start talking. If not, we'll just sign off here in a couple minutes. Okay. It looks like we're done. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Just sign off.
I can't get the mouse to move.
Can't.
Well, because so many folks are dropping. It's